On this week's Cardiff Central podcast, myself and Fraser have a look back at a frustrating game against Connacht on Friday and review the Challenge Cup pool stage as a whole from Cardiff. We try and cobble together a 23 to face Sharks at the Arms Park on Saturday and round up all of the pathway news. Hello and welcome to this week's Cardiff Central podcast. My name's Dan, taking the lead this week with Harley, unfortunately sidelined with an ill toddler. So best of luck to her and to him as well. It's not fun being in the house with an ill toddler, definitely. But I'm joined as usual by Fraser. Fraser, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. It's getting by. I don't have a toddler in my life, but I can't imagine how much worse it could be with a toddler.
A peaceful existence. I remember those days well.
Yeah.
We're not much in the way of news or anything at all, really, this week. There's lots of injury news is the only thing, but we'll get into that later in the pod when we start to take on the mammoth task of scrabbling together a 23 that can play for Cardiff this weekend. But we'll start at the Arms Park on Friday night, where Cardiff brought the pool stage of the European Challenge Cup to a close with a 1928 defeat at the hands of Connacht. Fraser, a frustrating one, I think is fair to say.
Yes, yeah. Obviously, you were there at the Arms Park, but I mean, watching it from a distance, it felt like it was kind of an encapsulation of like a bit about our season. I mean, obviously done pretty well, but it was just very frustrating and like moments of glimpses of brilliance and like great play, but just not quite being able to capitalize on it. Um, Obviously, in the first half, we started well, had some promising moments in attack, didn't get the score that we maybe deserved in that little period of time. Then Connor, obviously, they came back into it. They used Bundyaki really well throughout the match. I mean, he was silly good. His ability to like play the line right up to the line, but obviously he's fucking massive, so you can't just allow him to be. He's got such a threat there, but then his hands are so good as well. It's just like his decision making. He was brilliant throughout. But yeah, he started coming into it a bit more. We were on the back foot quite a lot of the first half, but I think we defended pretty well, generally speaking, throughout the match, really. And yeah, our scrum started a bit iffy, but definitely shored up, and it wasn't actually as worrying as I thought it might have become. I'd like to shout out Alex Mann, who I saw he was holding up Barrett's arm
Yeah.
in lots of the scrums, which I really appreciated. That was that's nous right there. But yeah, I think it was a fair score in the first half. We had that Bowen had that chance to kind of run clear, and he just couldn't get it gathered, which was a bit frustrating. And our lineout was a bit iffy. But yeah, it was a fair first half. Thomas Young looked brilliant. I mean, he looked even better in the second half. Obviously, we started off with that great try after their yellow card from the line out, Big Al with like that big burst, and then Thomas Young little snipe from the ruck, which was really good. And obviously, he scored that silly try on the wing. His pace, and I don't know if the grubber was. I couldn't tell if it's accidental, and it kind of just like happened. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he meant to do that. And he's a genius. But yeah, he was brilliant. But I think in the second half, I think the toll of defending for long periods was taken, and we just kind of allowed them through. There was one was a soft tackle from Big Al, I think, but it was just tiredness, like tired bodies. But I think overall we had chances again and just like silly handling errors or missed lineouts in key areas. I think lineouts in the 22 is the most frustrating thing you can possibly like witness. Just coughing up possession in those promising situations is such like a demoralizing thing to witness. So that happened, I think, a few times. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was just frustrating. Ben Thomas had a good game, I think, at 10, good decision making, and he made some errors, but he didn't let them affect him. He has that kind of confidence that you need in a 10, I think. And yeah, just reiterate, Bundyaki was great throughout the match. And I think that quality, they just had an extra quality that we didn't. And maybe that's strength and depth and like not having the subs to come on. But yeah, I think that's my overall summary of the match. I don't know what you think. Obviously, you were there, so.
Yes, I can't disagree with any of that. It's one game which I haven't watched back. Usually, I sort of go to the game and then I watch it back and notice a whole load of different things. But because, well, I won't openly admit to how I watch Premier Sports when we're on there, but I'm not a subscriber. So I haven't. I think the only place to watch it back has been Premier Player, so I haven't had a chance to do that. But I think that exactly right what you say about the physical toll of defending. To jump in with Harley's stats as he usually provides us with, but on Rugby Pass this shows the top five tacklers on the evening were uh, Thomas Young fifth with 21. Then Alex Mann and Teddy Williams both made 22, and Alan Lawrence and Reece Barrett both made 26 tackles, which is,
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, those are like they're impressive, but also not really stats that you want to see your team making. You don't want to be defending and having to make that many tackles, but yeah, it was certainly one with an extensive injury list and in some positions down to real bare bones. Then having to do that much work and having question marks over sort of the quality depth in some areas already. I know some after the game. I think some people I was on Twitter felt that I was maybe a bit harsh by saying we were sort of always second best in it, but I never, at no point during that game did I feel like we were going to win it. I didn't like the scoreline was close because we kept it close with a sort of really dogged defensive effort. But
Mm.
then, in that last 10 minutes where we had chances to go up and put them under pressure and maybe score some points, like I said, no line out. That was really poor all evening. Lots of handling errors, and just when we got into sort of phase play, we were just second best at the gain line. We got battered back a lot. So when we did get into our attacking shape off the line out in that first sort of 1, 2, 3 phases, we looked quite dangerous. But beyond that, yeah, we did struggle to create anything, and a couple of players sort of, like young Tom Bowen, like you said, had a few chances where he could have run on and scored, and he just sort of showed his inexperience a bit there with the hard hands a couple of times, and a couple of guys who haven't had a huge amount of minutes, they weren't quite up to speed again, sharpness wise, and lost their legs a bit in that final quarter. So I think the most frustrating thing is that if we had our first 15 out, we probably win. We're only 8 points down with so many injuries. I reckon you probably put 8 to 10 players in who were injured that would have started if they were available there. So yeah, it's an annoying one, but that's how it goes. You mentioned Bennett fly half there. Obviously, Sheedy was on the bench but didn't come on. Ben's going off to play fly half now for Wales. We assume we'll see him quite a bit there in the Six Nations. I think Jockey had said before the game that he wasn't expecting to use Sheedy to keep him back in case, as he's our only 10 really now for the next few weeks with De Beer injured. Would you have liked to have seen him come on, or do you think it was going well with Ben there, and so it was right to keep Sheedy back for the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good decision to keep Sheedy back. To be honest, I don't know what him coming on would have changed. I think maybe it would have made a difference and maybe more fluency. But I thought Ben Thomas played well at 10 in that game, and yeah, showed the confidence that you want to see in a fly off. And I think to emphasise the fact that Callum Sheedy will be basically our only 10 for quite a while is key that he remains fit. And obviously, I guess all our Wales players, are they going to be in camp by Saturday? Is that right? Or are they available against the Sharks?
Yeah, unless Gatland chooses to give us some back, which is unlikely, then
Yeah.
then they'll be unavailable for this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was probably the right decision to keep him on the bench. What do you reckon? Do you reckon he would have made a difference or changed the outcome of the game?
I mean, I don't think he definitely would have. My feeling was that Jennings's legs had gone by sort of 65 minutes, and that I think the tricky aspect of it is that it's becoming apparent now in the same way that sort of 2017-18 with Gareth Anscombe, he was our best 10 and our best 15. And the where you then used him sort of depended on who the backups were. So he ended up at 15 because Jared was a better second choice fly half, then Matthew Morgan was a better second choice fullback. And I think it's become apparent after Friday, and I think probably people have thought it for a while. But we haven't seen Ben at 10 for Cardiff enough to really cement it. But Ben is probably our best 10 and our best 12, and so it's about where you put him, sort of get the maximum out of him. And I thought, yeah, in that second half, that Sheedy would have been a better option to be at 10 with Ben at 12 than Jennings would have was at 12 with Ben at 10. So I probably would have liked to have seen us go for the win on Friday and not worry too much about the league games over the next few weeks, because as defeatist as it is, and it's probably easier to say this from outside the camp than if Jockey had come out and said it afterwards, but they're tough games. The next three games we've got with Sharks and then Connacht and Leinster away in the Six Nations, the chances of winning that, we are massive underdogs for all three of those games. So if we then, if Sheedy did come on and like the sort of risk and reward of he possibly helps us win it, but possibly gets injured and leaves us without a 10 for the next few weeks. My feeling is that the Challenge Cup is a competition that we could have targeted, and a home knockout game would have been really quite good for us. But yeah, I also understand it from Jockey's point of view that he has a whole season to think about and two competitions and a whole squad to manage. So it is one of those, I think that's easy for me to say on this podcast that no, bollocks to it, throw the next three games and go balls to the wall against Connacht. But yeah, it certainly underlines just how stretched the squad is at the moment. We're having to basically put lads on the bench and not who are only there in case of severe injury, same as Ben Thomas in Perpignan last week. He only comes on because De Beer gets injured and Sheedy again on Friday. The other player I wanted to bring up, and we'll get on to discussing this position a little bit more later, but I thought Jacob Beetham was very good again on Friday. Is he somebody who we should be seeing a lot more of go for the next few weeks, even though Cam Winnett has stayed behind from the Wales squad?
Yeah, I was thinking about that and how that'll work, and whether Beetham will, because I think he played really good. He looked quite assured in the position. He made some big hits. He's a physical lad, isn't he? Like, watching him, like, yeah, he puts himself about, and I think he played very well. And I was just thinking, because obviously you want Cam Winnett to play at fullback. He is our best fullback, I'd say, and he's brilliant. But you also want Beetham to be, I think, especially taking into account the bare bones of our squad, you've got to put Beetham in there somewhere. I don't know if I'm not sure whether they would shift Cam Winnett onto the wing, or if can he play there? He doesn't often play there, if ever. Or does Beetham, I know he's played 10 before, is he given that opportunity? Or I don't know, it's tricky, but I would try and I would think of a way to get him to play as stretched as we are, and with the way he played against Connacht, I thought he looked good, and it would be odd if we didn't somehow find a way to get him into the team. I don't know what you think about where he might fit, or how Jockey can get him in.
I thought one of the very first episodes of this podcast I did towards sort of the start of the last calendar year, sort of midway through last season, I nailed my colours to the mast of I see Beetham as a long-term 12. I think that's ultimately where his position will be. He's obviously he's played 10 a lot coming through the pathway, and did it for Wales a little bit last summer as well. So he's got that distribution and playmaking. He's, like you said, big old boy. That one tackle right on our own try line that he made. I don't know which Connacht player he was, but they were sort of flattened basically by him one-on-one on the try line. So he's physical in defence. I think that we haven't seen it too much, but watching him play for the Rags before his injury a bit, and when he was carrying the ball back from the backfield, he is big and physical through contact as well. So I think that's an area that he would develop, but I think certainly he's more than robust enough to give you go forward. And then he's got an excellent kicking game as well, which obviously Jockey likes that footballer at 12, second playmaker there. So that would be where I would see him fitting in over the next few weeks with Ben Thomas away. Like I said, I'd be happy to see Winnett on the wing and Beetham at fullback. So I think we probably should be looking at using Winnett on the wing a bit more to expand his positional versatility as well, because I think he can do a good job there. He's quick, he's got good feet, he's a good footballer out there, so I don't see any issue with that. But yeah, for the next few weeks, I'd be considering him our first choice 12. And then also it was 13 really that he was playing for most of the back end of the game on Friday night when Ray Lilo hobbled off, having made a great turnover on one leg, and then that
Yeah.
was the sort of the end of his game. But it's obviously not somewhere he's played, and it's a position that is quite difficult to switch into, particularly defensively, picking up the defensive reads from that outside centre channel. But he looks like a really smart rugby player. He's got a good top 2 inches. I think if you gave him a run of games there, he could pick that up quite quickly. You might have to take some short-term pain for medium-term gain. But yeah, I know that Jockey has said before that they see him as a 15 and that's where they want to play him. But I hope that they're sort of reconsidering that angle, and that with Winnett there and the need to get Beetham on that pitch as much as possible, they are thinking that he is a centre, because there's definitely a possibility in my mind that by the start of next season, our first choice 10 could be Ben Thomas and our first choice 12 could be Jacob Beetham there going forward. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see what they do over the next few weeks with Beetham. The result on Friday then left us third briefly in our pool, and we relied on results elsewhere, which came from Lyon absolutely battering Cheetahs in France, which meant that we couldn't be jumped. Unfortunately, Perpignan beat Zebra, so we got bumped down to fourth. So we scraped into the round of 16 in the Challenge Cup as the 16th seed, which means that we'll face the very new and definitely exotic opposition of Connacht again away in Galway on the weekend of the 4th, 5th, 6th of April. Do you think we can get anything from that? Is that one that we can go, or is it just an absolute nightmare?
I guess it does depend on what our injury situation is in April, I guess, and who we can pick. But I don't think Connor, yeah, we're a million miles away from it. As you kind of mentioned earlier, I feel if we'd had our first team, we can beat Connacht, and we pushed them in that match on Saturday, and we weren't a million miles away, despite obviously all the raft of injuries and the issues that before the game and then during the game. So I wouldn't be confident. Obviously, go playing away in Connacht's a tricky trip, but I would definitely prioritize that as a possibility. So I think, as you mentioned, our league fixtures are more difficult in the second half, and it's going to be tricky to get in the playoffs. I think it's still an option. I think we can do it, but if we beat, who would we play if we beat Connacht in that?
So our path is off the top of my head now. It's the game involving Racing, I believe. If we beat Connacht, as they drop down, somebody did send it to me on Blue Sky the other day. So it's Racing or this is good viewing as I scroll back from
Sorry,
my phone. No, it's okay. Racing
I
or
don't know.
Perpignan. So we're just playing loads of teams that we already know. But if we beat Connacht, it would be Racing or Perpignan, and then if we beat Racing or Perpignan, it would be Ospreys, Scarlets, Lyon, or Sharks. So there is quite a funny possibility where we could advance all the way to the final playing Connacht, Perpignan, and Lyon again. So we can just play the same teams over and over.
Yeah, a Groundhog Day, I guess. But yeah, a positive outcome. You do it again, it turns out all right. Yeah, so I think we've got the chance. Why not go for it? I think we can beat Connacht. We've definitely got the ability to do that. They're not, and yeah, Bundyaki was silly good. So if he's not playing, that would be great. If he could, I mean, I don't want to wish injury on him, but I wouldn't mind. Just a tight calf. He can't play the game, and he's back the next week. That's all I'm asking.
No, I always think we got a chance against Connacht. First 15 against first 15. I'd usually make us slight favourites, but yeah, I think being in Galway would be a leveller there, especially if the weather's usually howling in off the Atlantic Ocean as it can be. Although it's not definitely in Galway. I think for anybody planning a trip, I noticed that they're taking their Interpro game against Munster to a GAA stadium in County Mayo, I think. So don't don't immediately rush to get a hotel in Galway because you might be quite a long way away from where the game is. But yeah, I absolutely if as we'll get onto with injuries, but there was a lot of players coming back over the next sort of month or two. So if they can all get back up into fitness, and we fingers crossed don't pick up too much, if anything else, then we can get a really good side on the pitch there. We'll be playing. So the Super Saturday is the second to last weekend of March. So we got the Lions then, I think, the last weekend of March, before going into that Connacht game. So if we can rest a few of our Six Nations guys in that Lions game, and they're back fit and firing to go away at Connacht, then yeah, absolutely give us a chance. Good stuff. So that's the Challenge Cup pool stage to an end. One win, three losses. Overall, is it a disappointment as it looks where we didn't get that home fixture, or is it a case of sort of injuries dictated and we sort of did as well as we could in the circumstances?
I think it's a little bit frustrating. Just the matches individually were all quite frustrating because I felt watching them, we were in them towards more or less to the end, and we had the capacity to kind of get over the line. I think we could have made more of it, but I think just getting through is positive. Just getting into a knockout tie is exciting, even if it's against Connacht again. Still quite exciting to be in. I mean, I love being in Europe as a Welsh region in Europe doing well is really great. And I think as much as it would have been nice to get a home draw and play somebody different, I think we did all right. And I think that it's it's an encapsulation of our season. That kind of, I mean, we've done a little bit better in the URC, obviously getting over the line. Maybe we're reverting to the norm of just not having the depth in the squad to actually be there consistently. Because I think we could have got results in pretty much all the games we played in the group. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair summary. We were in all of them, didn't quite get over the line in three of them. I think there was a few comments after the game on Friday, on the old socials, where people were sort of saying we should have gone for it in Perpignan. But I think with the injury report that came out in the week, I'm not sure there was much stronger we could have gone, actually. Or we could have used Ben Thomas. But other than that, Josh Adams was injured, James Botham was injured, Tadui Faletau was injured, Young and Domachowski withdrew in the week. So yeah, there wasn't much wiggle room for Jockey there. So in the circumstances, I think it's solid enough. Yeah, it's just I think it's ultimately, we are still on this sort of a curve of progression as a club, and it's not going to, as we said, it's not going to happen overnight. And we've given a lot of people game time. The massive positives are Reece Barrett, Tom Bowen, Steph Emmanuel all getting good game time. I think we've had a good look at the wider squad, and that it should give Jockey and Darren Allinson and those guys making recruitment retention decisions, give them plenty of food for thought in who they want to retain and where they would like to strengthen as well. So bigger picture wise, I think it's been quite successful. But yeah, sort of small picture on each game, there's definite frustrations there. But hopefully, same as last season, we learn the lessons of those games, and a couple of those young players learn what it takes to win those tight ones, particularly away in France. Then ultimately it will do stand them in good stead going forward. Right, that's Friday night done dusted. So at this point of the podcast, just to say, if you're enjoying what you're listening to and want to hear more, feel free to like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're on. Or if you're watching our lovely faces on YouTube, then feel free to like and subscribe on there as well. And you can delve into the multitude of other podcasts that are produced by this channel, covering all the Welsh sides and the URC and women's game, who will be no doubt producing a podcast this week after Sean Lynn was announced as head coach at last in what was surprisingly competent decision making from the WRU. I'm not sure if that'll last, but good to see briefly it rearing its head from them. Bit of pathway stuff over the last few days. The under-18s continued their regional age grade championship campaign on Sunday in Llandudno. They went to play Scarlets and were on the end of a bit of a heavy 51-19 loss. I think not to no panic stations as such. The Scarlets have got a good under-18s crop, and Cardiff tend to use ours as I don't know if Scarlets do or don't this as well, but Cardiff tend to sort of mix and match and give everybody a go, get everybody looked at in the squad. They named quite a large squad, and I think also we'll be expecting to see a couple of under 18s who would have been playing potentially in and around the RAG squad over the next few weeks as well, where they're short of numbers, which would be good experience to them playing senior rugby. The under 20s, Wales under 20s, played the Welsh Academy under 23 team again, also at Llandovery on Friday night. Sean Davis, Harry Wild, and Oshan Darwin Lewis were on the bench for the 20s, who changed up a lot from the previous week's game. And then Joe Cowell captained the under 23 side with Evan Rees in the back row, and then Ethan Phillips and Cody Stone on the bench. A whole host of former Cardiff Pathway lads involved as well. And the 20s won again, which is a good result for them. We'll wait to see the 20s squad this week, but should be a fairly healthy Cardiff representation with those three: Davis, Wild, Oshandan Lewis, as well as Stefan Manuel, Elijah Evans, Tom Bowen, probably named in the squad, although I suspect he might not feature too heavily because the 20s tend to work on the basis of if you're involved in your first team games at your club, then you are released for them over playing with the 20s. So I think we'll be seeing a bit of Tom Bowen going back and forth to Ireland over the next few weeks. The only other then pathway bit is that the Buck Super Rugby is back this week. Cardiff Met are playing Bath away on Wednesday night, and the Uni host Loughborough at Llanrumney. And then the Rags are back in action on Saturday. They're kicking off their Super Rugby Cymru Cup campaign away at Llandovery. The Rags are producing a Rags cast, which is worth a listen to over there on their YouTube channel. If you've got 20 minutes or so, Dan Fish and Tom Haberfield are on there this week, and I think we can expect to see, as I said, some of those under 18s and some of those fringe semi-pro guys involved quite heavily over the next few weeks as they mix it up and give a few different guys a go with under 20s unavailability guys in the first team and a couple of injuries there as well. Right. Pathway stuff done. On to this Saturday then for the first team. Cardiff are hosting the Sharks in the last game of this fixture block back in the URC, 5:15 at the Arms Park. Fraser, I suppose the question is exactly how much are we dreading this one?
Well, I'm going along to it, so yeah, I'm going to see a massacre firsthand, I guess. No, it should. I mean, it'll be fun to see some of these World Cup winners. I mean, I know you were mentioning them earlier, come down, and I mean, yeah, I don't hold up much hope for us getting a result, but it'll be a good test again to see where we're at. I know, and see how we are coping without the Wales team. I think it's going to be quite jarring without having Teddy Williams in second row. So it's going to be interesting to see where, without those players, how we cope, and it might be a good indicator of how we're going to do in this second part of the season, well, especially during the Six Nations. But like, just see where we might end up in the table. So it'll be a good barometer of where we are. Obviously, Sharks have an incredibly strong team on paper, but we obviously have had some good results against them, so we've got history of doing all right. But I think it'll be a good barometer of where we are at, and I'm looking forward to seeing players like Sia Khaleesi and Knox and Shea in the flesh at Cap. It should be a good fun game, I think. Well, see how it goes, but yeah.
Yeah, so just to list the Sharks have named a 28-man squad that came over so they lost 66-12 against Bordeaux in the Champions Cup last week. And the same squad is staying up in the Northern Hemisphere for this weekend's game. Included Bongi and Banambi, Oxenche, Trevor Naikane, Sia Khaleesi, Jordan Hendricks, Grant Williams, and Lucanio Am as their World Cup winners, as well as a host of other guys who sort of been in and around the Springboks squad and been impressive in the URC as well. Although the Sharks themselves do continue to massively underachieve considering the quality of player available to them. I know they're backed by some fairly wealthy individuals. They're not short of a few bob in terms of South African rugby. So yeah, it is interesting that they do manage to sort of get nowhere near sort of the business end of any competitions, despite that list of players involved. And of course, we've beaten them. Is it 3 times in a row? I think we've beaten them now. So there is a bit there, but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of question marks over sort of our scrummaging and set piece, particularly this weekend. Is there anywhere we can get at them, do you think, to hurt them? Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's hard to say. Realistically, I think depends again. It depends who's available. Like Thomas Young, I guess they're quite big. They've obviously got a big pack, as all South African teams tend to have. But maybe we could get them on the fringes. Yeah, a bit of pace in the back line. I'm not entirely sure. I can't really see, to be honest, where we might have the advantage. But then again, we've beaten them 3 times in a row, so clearly we do have an advantage. I don't know if you remember what aspect of our game was kind of winning over against them in those matches. I can't bring my mind back to them, but
The only thing I can really think of was that I think we sort of tactically kicked them off the park. And I think with the South Africans, they obviously are they have incredible individual talent in the back three. They're all, no matter what South African side turns up, they've all got just unbelievably rapid blokes in the back three. Like particularly their wingers are always so quick. But I think they do struggle a bit with because when you think of South African rugby, you think of such sort of heavily structured, like forward dominated play. That they, particularly with a side that's got so many Springboks in it as well, I think they do struggle a little bit sort of on transition, getting like sort of regathering that structure, getting back into their shape. And that if you can move them around with your kicking game, you can chase well and force a couple of errors, you can get field position. And I back, even with all of our injuries, I'd always back Cardiff to look dangerous on a first phase. So yeah, I think it's going to be a case of cutting down errors because if we're going scrum to scrum, we're just going to be ended up going penalty to penalty. And it's a case of kicking well and chasing well and really sort of managing the territory game well. And if we can keep them at arm's length and whenever they're attacking, ask them to sort of play from deep and then kick return well and chase well and try and win the ball high up the pitch, then we can certainly keep things tight and give ourselves an opportunity to sort of produce a moment of magic and get over the try line. And something we haven't done a lot, but if we can do, particularly if we're going to ask them to run from deep a lot and try and defend and get over the ball, is if we can win a few penalties and take a few 3 points. Because we turned a couple of 3 points down again on Friday night. I'm thinking Ben Thomas just before half time where it was just inside the Connacht half, and I think he's got the legs from there, and he definitely considered taking it on, but they ended up kicking for touch, and well, it was adjudged to have been kept in and not knocked on, although I'd questioned both of those decisions. But yeah, I think we just need to be just slightly sort of game smarter in those scenarios and start just keeping the scoreboard ticking over and keeping pressure on the opposition and not putting so much pressure on ourselves as well to nail these lineouts and kicks to touch and then putting pressure on ourselves to score and sort of getting quite uptight and forcing errors on ourselves. So
yeah,
that's the only thing I can see from our point of view.
I think it's the handling errors are killer. I know
Yeah.
there was so many, and it's like it seems to be a recurring theme is silly little knock-ons. I mean, in Connacht, there was quite a few occasions where we just hard hands, as you said, and if we can be patient and take the 3 points, we need to maintain and keep pressure off us. It's like maintaining possession is really crucial to that because we're just on the back foot so much, and if you, especially with the scrum, relative lack of a strong scrum against a very strong scrummaging team, we want to avoid that. So keeping possession and not knocking on for no reason is really, really crucial to get something out of the game, which, here's hoping. We're ahead of them in the table, so I'd say we are better than them, so we will win.
Sounds good to me. I just been listing there the injuries as I can recall them off the top of my head. So if I run through the list of players injured, unavailable, or sort of question mark. Got Domachowski and Ed Byrne at loose head. Liam Belcher is injured, and Evan Lloyd's with the Wales squad. At hooker, Kieran Azaratis with the Wales squad at tight head, and Teddy Williams in the second row. Then Botham and Faletau are both on international duty. There, William Bradley is a long-term absentee. Ben Donnell as well in the back row. There's a question mark over Thomas Young coming out to Friday's game, I understand. So we'll wait to see on that one. And a similar question mark over Alan Lawrence as well, although it sounds like he will be available for this weekend, which is a small bit of good news. Scrum half then, Ali Davis is definitely out, and Ellis Bevan is with the Wales squad. Tina Stabia is out at fly half, Ben Thomas in the centre, and then there's a question mark over Ray Lilo having hobbled off on Friday night. Mason Grady's obviously on the injury list, and then on the wings and out and out wingers, we've got Josh Adams in the national team. Theo Cabango, which is particularly bad news for him, that he has suffered a recurrence of I think it was the hamstring injury that had kept him out after. So he'd done it at Judgment Day last year, didn't he, against the Ospreys, and then had a slight setback in the autumn, and then it's just basically just redone it in training in the last couple of weeks. So he's going to be out for the rest of the season. And then Harry Millard and Ewan Stevens are both injured as well. I think the only slight bits of good news this weekend then, Evan Daniel made his return to fitness against Connacht on Friday night, so he'll be available again. Louis Hennessy should be back available, having gone back to Bath for the European games. He'll come back in on loan from them. And then with scrum half, obviously with Ala Davis and Ellis Bevan being available, it leaves Johan Mulder as our only senior scrum half option. So I think it was confirmed at the Cardiff press conference today, Tuesday, as we're recording, that Ethan Lloyd will step up from the Rags. He's a former academy player. Played a lot for the Rags whilst in the academy. Was part of sort of cup winning sides and league winning sides a few years ago. Went away briefly to, I think it was Merthyr he ended up signing for. But I have something in the back of my head says he also played for Newport briefly at the start of the season as well, but came back when Tom Haberfield got injured, and has basically started every game for the Rags over the last few weeks, and has looked in really good nick, in fairness to him. So it's I think it's a good tick in the box for the Rags, producing players to step up, and for Super Rugby Cymru generally as well, to take a lad who is, I think he's around 22, 23, had just come out of the professional game, given him an opportunity, and now he gets another dig at the professional game again to see what he can do off the bench on Saturday. So we'll start with our team selection up front, I guess. Loose head props is basically it's Danny Southworth or Reece Barrett again. I think it's sort of which one do we send into the Lions' Den, really, of scrummaging. I'd maybe suggest Barrett starts again on the same basis as last week, that it's easier to manage his minutes from the start, rather than Southworth potentially going down after 5 minutes and then Barrett being subjected to 75 minutes of being pummeled to death by the South Africans. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a fair choice. And I think Reece Barrett, I think you mentioned earlier, I mean, obviously the amount of tackles he did against Connacht was pretty impressive for a loose head. And he does look really good in the loose. He's got like a really dynamic ball carrier, can really make yards. He looks really promising. I've been quite impressed with him in the past couple of weeks. And obviously his scrum was a bit iffy at the start, but with some help from Alex Mann and just like getting used to it, he did shore it up a bit. So yeah, I think start with Reece Barrett. Obviously, if it's getting, I mean, too brutal, then Danny Southworth can come on. But I can't imagine it's going to get a huge amount better if he does come on. But share out the pain. Basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Just I think ultimately just trying not to kill the confidence of everybody. Hooker then is another straight shootout. Dav Hughes or Evan Daniel. Any preference there?
I'd probably go maybe Dav Hughes and then Evan Daniel coming on, because if Evan Daniel's just kind of coming back, give him come off the bench, kind of build his minutes up a bit, probably.
Tight head. It's Litterick to start. Will Davis King on the bench, I would suggest. Yeah,
definitely.
A big test for Litterick there. See how he goes. Second row, then I think also slightly picks itself with Seb Davis and Josh McNally.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so.
And then come to the bench in a minute for these guys because I think there's probably a format question mark over how many forwards you want on the bench there. Back row then, I think 6 and 8 pretty much pick themselves with Man and Big Al.
Yeah, yeah. If Big Al's fit, as he's like indicating, he probably will be. Then yeah, I think Big Al and Man.
And then there is this question mark over Young. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Obviously, he was only just fit to play last Friday, and maybe has sort of exaggerated that or whatever that injury was, or picked up something new. If say he is fit, in a Thomas Young v Dan Thomas face off, any preference there?
I mean, I guess yeah. I mean, Thomas Young was so good
Mm.
in against Connacht. So he, if that's him not fit, he's pretty unbelievable. Maybe that's his best state, is to be slightly unfit, because he was amazing, and the pace he has is staggering. I think I think after a performance like that, I think he merits starting again.
Yeah.
So I would probably, if he is fit and he's ready to go, I'd probably give him another game, because he has not played a huge amount this season anyway.
Yeah.
So I probably would. But I love Dan Thomas, so
Yeah, it's not a bad backup, is it?
no, it isn't.
If
No.
Young doesn't make it there. Halfback, I think, also pretty much picks itself with Mulder and Sheedy
Yeah.
starting. And then we get into the 12 question mark Jennings or Beetham. I'm obviously hung my hat on the Beetham train. Any objections to that? Or...
No, I'd like to see that. I think it would be really good to see Beetham play, and I think he's got all the attributes to be, or attributes to be a really classy 12. So I think you're right about Rory Jones. He kind of just like he was all right against Connacht, and then kind of his legs did go. But yeah, I'd give, why not give Jacob Beetham a chance, especially if we're wanting to play over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So if he does shine in that position, that'd be really, really fruitful.
13 then Lilo question mark or Louis Hennessy. Is it just Lilo if he's fit and then Hennessy if not, or do even if the Lilo might have been fit, do you give him a sort of a week off with Hennessy back involved?
I think you probably give Hennessy a game, because
Mm.
again, he's not around for that long in Cardiff, is he? So might as well make the most of him playing.
Yeah, it's not really. They haven't really said how long he'll be
Was it
here.
3? I thought it was 3 months, or is that not? Or is it
No, the
the
three
rest?
months thing was that he could have played in Europe for us if he'd signed a 3 month contract.
Right. Okay. Okay.
They
Okay.
never actually specified how long he was, and nothing in the like sort of sometimes the media sort of say, "Oh, we've heard is X amount," but I haven't seen
Right.
anything from that either.
Okay.
So I wonder if it's just sort of open ended to a degree until Bath sort of say, "Oh, we'd like him back now, please." But
I
yeah.
think.
I agree that definitely. I think starting this weekend while we've got him and make the most of
Yeah.
him there.
Well, I guess the only other thing I would raise is that if Beetham does play a 12 and then you have Hennessy outside him, that's quite a inexperienced centre
Yes.
partnership. So maybe Lilo in if Beetham is at 12. I don't know. And Lilo on one leg gets a turnover, so he'll be all right. But I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you reckon to that? What do you think? Just put them both in.
Yeah, I'm tempted to just put them both. This is one of those where we sort of in the grey area between what I think Jockey might do and what I would like to see again. And I'm never really sure exactly what we do with this team selection. We sort of flick back and forth week to week. But if I was Jockey, I think if Lilo's fit, I'm starting him.
Yeah,
But from my point of view, again, one of those easy to say on a podcast rather than being in the hot seat is that. I'd like to see Hennessy start. So I guess on the graphic thing that I put on our socials, it says prediction. So on a prediction basis, we should probably go Ray. But
yeah. I guess so.
on a what I would like to see basis, it would probably be Hennessy for that one. Skip to fullback briefly. It's just going to be Winnett if we're saying that Beetham's starting at 12.
Yeah,
And then wings, Gabe Hamer-Webb will be there. Tom Bowen will be there again, and I think the suggestion is that Regan Grace should be fit. I don't know how, like, it was a 12-day stand down period from the concussion protocol, so that takes us up to like Thursday or something like that. I think from
Okay.
the Saturday in Perpignan. He might not have trained a huge amount. Obviously, it depends on him coming out of the concussion protocol, but he is obviously quite good. Would you go? Would you keep Bowen in? I guess is the question, or would you bring Grace back in if he was fit?
I think bring Grace back in
Yeah,
because I'd like to see more of him. He's barely played for Cardiff and hasn't played much for a significant period of time. And there's so much potential there. I'd like to see him again, given a chance. And obviously, Tom Bowen has had his moments and looked really good over the past couple of weeks, but he has shown some of his his youth and maybe his areas for development.
yeah.
So it wouldn't harm to give him a little rest. And yeah, I would. Yeah, Grace and Hamer Webb on the wings would be.
Yeah, I think the other element of it as well is that if it is going to be quite kick intensive and a lot of aerial work, then I don't think Bowen's, from what we've seen, he's not weak in the air and stuff, but he has the same issue as Cam Winnett of genetically is just quite short, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so although Grace and Gabe aren't necessarily blessed with height either, they are both taller than Tom Bowen is. So just having that bit more aerial presence to assist Cam in that back three there as well. I think will be key because I can imagine, although we're thinking a tactical kicking game as well, I imagine the Sharks will look to put a bit of pressure on us in that area themselves when they're in possession as well. So yeah, that's sounds good to me. Bench then, yeah. The question I think with it being a South African side and with the sort of players that we've got available, is it a 6-2 job this weekend?
I think you'd probably. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think you'd probably want to do that. Just shore it up, make sure that we don't get more injuries or get really really done in the scrum. So I probably would go 6-2 if we
So
have the numbers to do
with that,
that.
then yeah, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Who fancies a game? Hands up.
Yeah.
I think so. Rory Thornton's your backup second row. I would suggest, and then back row wise, you've got Mac Martin in there, and then if hopefully Young is fit, then Dan Thomas slots in as your sixth guy.
Yeah.
If not, I would suggest I'd still stick with 6-2 and probably bring young Lucas De La Rua onto the bench. He played for the under 23s in that Welsh Academies team that played Wales under 20s in the first week, but noticeably wasn't involved last week, which made me wonder if he'd been hauled back into first team training and was in and around the first team squad there. And I think I seem to remember him playing pretty well in that Misfits game against Toulouse a couple of seasons ago and stepping up there. He's been very good for the Rags this season. Question mark over exactly where his best position is, 6, 7, or 8. I think he can do a job all three, but I thought he was particularly impressive at 6 against Newport in the game at the Arms Park just before Christmas. But yeah, I wouldn't have any. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but I wouldn't have any issues with him being thrown in there and just sort of saying 15 minutes at the end, go and cause as much havoc as you can.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen a huge amount of him. The only thing is, I guess when I did see him in the under 20s, he's not a big, huge player, is he physically?
No,
Or
he's
I don't
not
know.
stature wise. No, he's not. But I think he packs a surprising punch.
Right.
Sort of. Think of somebody who sort of does, Jack Morgan esque in that sort of
Right. Yeah.
manner, or James Botham. That yeah, they're not like 6'4", 125 kg blokes, but um, and yeah, since that 20s campaign as well, I think you when you see him again, you might think, oh yeah, it's in the same way that we did with Alex Mann a few weeks ago. Like,
Yeah.
that guy's been in the gym a bit. He's definitely put on a bit of timber in the last sort of 8 to 12 months or so. So
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Obviously if Thomas Young is unfit, then Lucas Del Rio, I wouldn't have any qualms with that at all.
And then I think back to obviously we know it's Ethan Lloyd is the replacement scrum half on the bench, and then your outside back option is well, as a Bowen is there, but doesn't give you much positional versatility. It's just a winger. It's pretty much Jennings or Jennings then that we've got left, I think.
Yeah. I was going to ask about Ethan Lloyd. What's Ethan Lloyd's like? I haven't seen him much for him play. What's his like key or like point of difference, I guess, as a scrum half, or what's his like area of strength?
He's very organised and very good kick-in game. That's that like it was always noticeable when he was coming through at the academy and the Rags, and I think particularly so he was playing a lot. Him and Tom Haberfield were dovetailing quite a lot at nine, sort of flicking between starting and bench, and you can see that Haberfield obviously a long time pro at the Ospreys, and you can see the habits that he's picked up there around organising his forwards, getting your box kick sorted, and kicking well. But last few weeks he's looked really sharp sniping wise for the Rags as well.
Oh, nice.
Took a good try. Scored two good tries against Swansea. One, yeah, pick and go from the base, sort of sells the whole defense with a dummy and dives over, and then the other one tracking on the inside of a break from the back of a scrum. So yeah, he's somebody who he's got plenty to his game, and was probably a bit unlucky to have been released the first time round from the academy. I think it was just at a time where Lloyd and Thomas were still there in the first team, so there was a really good first and second choice. Then we had Ellis Bevan and Jamie Hill at the time coming through just out of the academy. So obviously with the amount of financial restriction at the time he was looking to get a contract, it just didn't work out for him. But I'd certainly say that if he impresses this next few weeks, that he'd be in line for a contract if there's one there. We've got Sean Davis, who will be with the under 20s this season. Glen Taff captain last year, and is a very good prospect, sort of a big physical nine. But he's probably at least a year, maybe two away from cracking into first team rugby. He'll play for the 20s this year. I think he may still be available to play for the 20s next year then as well.
Right.
And that's when he'll start. He's been on the bench a lot for the Rags this season, so I think he'll start for the Rags a bit more. So yeah, it wouldn't be a massive surprise if they did say to Lloyd, look, here's a 6 month deal to the end of the season if you fancy it, and then that's his sort of trial period to earn a longer deal. But yeah,
Mm.
I'm pleased to see him get the opportunity, and think he deserves it, and it's good for him and the Rags.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so that's our 23 there. So just to recap, the starting team from 1 to 15. Reece Barrett, Dav Hughes, and Reece Litterick up front. Seb Davis and Josh McNally in the second row. Alex Mann, Thomas Young, if fit, if not Dan Thomas, and Big Al Lawrence in the back row. Johan Mulder and Callum Sheedy at halfback. Jacob Beetham and Ray Lilo in the centres, with Regan Grace, Gabe Hamer-Webb, and Cam Winnett in the back three, and then a 6-2 bench of Evan Daniel, Danny Southworth, Will Davis King, Rory Thornton, Big Mac Martin, either Dan Thomas or Lucas De La Rua, depending on Young's fitness, and then Ethan Lloyd and Rory Jennings in the backs. I think that's in the circumstances of that injury list and unavailability list, it's a team that will be noticeably second best, but can give it a good go, I guess, is at least the thing.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Here's hoping. And yeah, some good opportunities for players to kind of showcase. I mean, look, yeah, someone like Johan Mulder, obviously, it's a big chance for him to show that he's, because we haven't really seen much of him. I think he's looked a bit better the last couple of games coming on. He's not looked bad, so it'd be good to see how he forms starting. So, and against his compatriots, so maybe I'll give him an extra edge. I think he'll be unreal. So here's hoping.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So as said, that game's on Arms Park Saturday evening, 5:15 kickoff, or probably on S4C or BBC if you can't make it down. But it looks like the crowd's going to be a good one. There's a mini and junior rugby festival. I think before the game, and they'll be walking around the pitch at half time, so it'd be a good atmosphere down there, good crowd, and yeah, even if the game doesn't quite go our way, then there's plenty of high quality Springboks on the show, and hopefully a good display of rugby at the Arms Park. That's it from us. We'll be back next week. We'll look back over that Sharks game, review the fixture block as a whole, and look ahead to the Six Nations before getting into the Six Nations period. And we'll announce our plans of what we're doing over those few weeks on socials. But Fraser, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.
And thank you all for listening. Catch you next week.